This is Karen Tumulty, the national political correspondent here at Time. I am just trying to take a look at how you did this. And one of the things that's really remarkable is, you come down to 3 candidates left in this race, and, you're the only guy who's never done this before. And yet yours is the campaign that has never run off the road through all this. You haven't had staff shakeups. You haven't even changed slogans.
We've been pretty steady.
And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about when you were deciding that you wanted to do this, what kind of thought did you give to what kind of campaign you wanted to put together, given the fact you were going to be up against somebody who was going to be raising more money than anybody had ever raised before and have the establishment behind her from the get-go?
Right. Well, in some ways that was liberating. We didn't have a lot of pressure on us. I had some pressure in the sense that running this time with all the hype that surrounded the run-up in the race meant that if my candidacy had blown up, it would be embarrassing. But on the other hand, what I felt was that we could try some things in a different way and build an organization that reflected my personality and what I thought the country was looking for. And, we didn't have to unlearn a bunch of bad habits. My starting point was that we were going to have a no-drama campaign, that people who were involved in this campaign would submerge their egos to the larger cause, and that includes me. Because I was not favored, that meant that the people who signed up for this campaign, they really believed in what the campaign was about, and so they weren't mercenaries. They weren't coming in just attached to a campaign. They had to really believe in what we were trying to do, and that, I think, was very helpful. I also said that it was very important to have a consistent team, a circle of people who were collaborative and non-defensive, and that we'd be making decisions together as opposed to just 1 or 2 people. I wanted to make sure that we were bouncing ideas around as much as possible, but I did want to put an emphasis on a well-managed organization, that we weren't wasting money, that we were, we didn't have a lot of leaks, that once a decision was made, everybody was on board with the decision. And I think that David Plouffe, my campaign manager, deserves enormous credit for executing on this approach that I laid out. And then the last point I guess I would make was I knew that I wanted our campaign to be positive. I was convinced that the American people were tired of a politics that was all about tearing the other person down. And I was also convinced that people would respond if we reached out and got a grassroots effort going. That there was a lot of untapped energy out there among people who had felt locked out of the process because of a very ingrown and secretive Bush administration. Now, what I didn't anticipate was how effectively we could use the Internet to harness that grassroots base, both on the financial side and the organizing side. And that, I think, was probably one of the biggest surprises of the campaign, was just how powerful our message merged with the social networking and the power of the Internet.
Yeah, it's interesting. Joe Trippi from the Dean campaign says, if we were the Wright brothers, these guys are the Apollo program. I mean, did you have much of a feel for technology? Are you a techno geek at all?
I'm not a techno geek, but what I was very clear about was how powerful the power of the Internet could be when combined with the right message. And since our campaign was about openness and transparency and participation, that message merged perfectly with the medium, I think. And we just had some incredibly creative young people who got involved, and what I think we did well was give them a lot of latitude to experiment and try new things and to put some serious resources into it. And very early on, we hired some pretty senior information officers to work with the young creative types. And I have a lot of friends who are in technology who became sort of a brain trust in figuring out how could we continually develop and improve how we used the Internet. And it worked incredibly well.
Can I ask you, in putting your team together, it is sort of remarkable because some of these are people that you've worked with before, Axelrod. Some of them are Tom Daschle's organization. I was surprised to hear how many people you pulled out of corporate America. How do you go about picking people, and then once you've picked them and put them in this high-stakes, high-stress environment, how do you go about getting the best out of everybody and making them work together?
I look for real smart people who place a high premium on getting the job done as opposed to getting credit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think if there's one running thread in our team, it's been that everybody pitches in, everybody knows their jobs, everybody works hard, and people are not concerned about whether they get credit or not. Mm-hmm. And as I said, I think David Plouffe set a great tone. I think if you've seen a profile about him, it's been inadvertent. Right? But, my chief of staff in the Senate, Pete Rouse, Tom Daschle's old chief of staff, is as well-connected and well-known and as popular and as smart and savvy a person as there is on Capitol Hill, but is completely ego-free. That just makes for a good team when everybody's working together. And there's a lot of room for discussion and argument. I like good arguments, but I insist that people don't take these arguments personally, but we're just trying to figure out what's going to work.
Well, what about one of the things that David Plouffe told me that you guys did was you came in with the assumption that you didn't have to sort of accept the electorate as it is. That,
Yes. I mean, it was always important for us. Part of my starting point, as I said before, was that I was convinced that the American people were eager for a new kind of politics, and as somebody who's been a community organizer, I was convinced that if you invited people to get engaged, mm-hmm. If you weren't trying to campaign like you were selling soap, mm-hmm. but instead said, this is your campaign, you own it, and you can run with it, that people would respond. And we could build a new electoral map. We could get new people involved that hadn't been involved before. And obviously, we saw that most clearly in Iowa, where, you had voters under 30 participate at the same rates as voters over 65. Mm-hmm. And that had never happened before. That continues to be something that I'm very proud of, is how we've expanded the voter rolls in every state where we've campaigned. And I think that means that we can put into play some states that might normally not be in play.
I want to ask you about one specific event I heard of last summer when one weekly news magazine that I know of had put a headline on a story that said, "Is it too late for Obama?" And I understand there was a meeting of your fundraisers in Iowa where they were basically in full panic, and Penny Pritzker had to call you up and you were out campaigning somewhere else, and she just said, "Get here, quick."
I won't say that they were in full revolt. I mean, one of the great things about our fundraisers, even our traditional fundraisers, have been more mission-driven than transactional. I mean, we've gotten a lot of people who have been big fundraisers before involved. I do think that there was a lot of anxiety, feeling that we were 20, 30 points down in the polls, and I think the conventional wisdom had written us off. And it is true that I wasn't scheduled originally to come to Iowa. And Penny suggested that I needed to give him a pep talk. So I went there, and my message was pretty simple. It was that if anybody signed up thinking it was going to be easy, then I hadn't made myself clear. We knew this was going to be hard, but that we've got a plan that we're going to execute. We feel very confident about what we're doing in Iowa. We feel very confident that with a win in Iowa, the national polls will change. And, I encourage people to remember change isn't easy. Change is always hard. And they responded very well and I think gave us both the room and the resources we needed to finish the job.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
And thank
you so much, Karen.
Thanks.